imagine that we have all read Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, or at least seen the movie. It's a marvelous book by Lewis Carroll in which a young girl chases a white rabbit down a rabbit hole into a very strange place and has amazing adventures. Well, in the second book, Alice goes through the looking glass, returning to Wonderland by walking through a mirror, and finds herself playing the part of a chess piece on a living chessboard. When a move brings her alongside the White Queen, they begin a conversation. And the White Queen tells Alice that she's 101 years old and getting younger every day because she lives backwards in time. And she relates a number of other stories that Alice finds, well, impossible. At one point in their conversation, Alice laughed and said, "There's no use trying. One can't believe impossible things." "Well, I dare say you haven't had much practice," said the Queen. "When I was your age, I always did it for half an hour every day. Why, sometimes I believed as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast." Now, I have conversations all the time with people who find many of the things that I believe to be true, well, impossible. A physical resurrection? Nah, couldn't happen. He must have been in a coma or something, not really dead. Raising Lazarus? Same thing. Or a premature burial, perhaps. Healings, casting out demons, psychosomatic illness, or at worst, completely made-up stories. A virgin birth? Really? Yeah, really. I absolutely believe in miracles. I do. I've seen too much impossible stuff happen in my own lifetime in this day-to-day modern world not to believe in miracles. Modern folks aren't the first to question this story, however. There are indications that other first-century writings, even at the time, that some claim this whole story was an invention, that in fact Mary had been raped by Roman soldiers, and this was just a cover-up. Because after all, why follow the teachings of a criminal who was executed by crucifixion and wasn't even the legitimate son of Joseph? There are scholars still who suspect that Luke added this bit to the story of Jesus' ministry just to give him legitimacy in the eyes of those critics. Look, his birth is a miracle. Nothing is impossible with God. And certainly there is scriptural precedent for this kind of a story. Sarah was very old when she became pregnant with Isaac. Hannah had been infertile for years when God opened her womb and gave her Samuel. Likewise with the mother of Samson and Mary's own cousin Elizabeth. Moses was supposed to be killed and was miraculously rescued by an Egyptian princess. There is a long history in the Bible of women who gave birth under special circumstances to sons who would become critical to the story of Israel's relationship with God. Founders and rescuers and prophets for the people. Important men. So Luke presents these doubters with this story, saying, in effect, if you can believe that Sarah gave birth at such an advanced age, that God intervened to save Moses from certain death and opened the womb of all those other women, then surely a young unmarried woman can carry the Son of God, for nothing is impossible with God. This birth, this miraculous occurrence, is just one more proof of God's great power. Is the story factual? I don't know. Is it true? Yes. Because nothing is impossible with God. The other equally important thing going on here, however, is the story it tells of Mary's faith. For she is the one who says, "I am the Lord's servant. Let it be with me just as you have said." She is the one who's going to have to face gossip at best, or, worst possible case, there's the very real chance she will be stoned to death when her pregnancy is discovered. But she agrees. And Joseph listens to the angel and becomes her husband, and the Christmas story goes forward the way we know it, the way that Apparently, our children are teaching their teacher this morning. In just a few days, we'll celebrate the birth of this special child, the Messiah, Son of the living God, Prince of Peace, Lord of Love. This is the fourth Sunday, the one we call Love Sunday. It's a Sunday on which we celebrate God's great love for all of the world, which is why Jesus was sent to live among us. God sent Jesus to us as a human, someone who is just like us, with a message of love and justice and compassion and mercy, intended to reconcile all of humanity with God. He came to wipe hatred and oppression and all sorts of evil and sin out of our hearts, so that the world can become God's kingdom, just as heaven already is. Now, I came across a picture on Facebook a few weeks ago that I just had to share with you all this morning. It's cute. It's a guinea pig, I think, or maybe a hamster, I'm not sure, wearing heart-shaped glasses that are pink. And it says, in case you're having trouble with the words on top, "Can't see the haters when I've got my love glasses on." It's so cute. All we have to do about haters is put on our heart-shaped glasses and poof, they disappear. We can't see them anymore. Or not. Our mission moment this morning was about human trafficking in Timor and Indonesia and Malaysia, which is a very real, very scary, very evil act of hate. The people who are involved in this heinous business only love money. They cannot possibly have love for one another and still sell women and girls and boys into the hell that's facing them. And that's only one kind of outcome for those who have been stolen and sold. No love glasses are going to make that go away. On Wednesday, Linda and I attended the Committee on Ministry meeting. We go once a month and spend all day interviewing candidates for the ordained ministry or for licensed ministry. Among our colleagues was the Reverend Perry Spencer Sr., who some of you know. Perry is 80 years old. He is a retired pastor. He keeps saying he's retired anyway. All of the retired pastors keep saying that. I don't believe any of them. He's been part of the civil rights movement for his whole life. He is a respected member of the Disciples of Christ African American Convocation. He is one of our leaders in this denomination. And he was wearing a black t-shirt on which was printed the words, "I can't breathe." He told us he heard a sermon in which the preacher had said to him and to all the congregation, "Demonstration is not passive." So he was wearing this t-shirt as a demonstration. If you saw the shirt and knew what it was about, that it was about Eric Garner, the unarmed black man who died as a result of a New York City police officer's chokehold, then good, he had reminded you. If you didn't know what it meant and you asked, Perry would tell you the story. Either way, everybody who saw the shirt would know where he stood. It was clear to all of us that Perry is suffering great pain over the events of recent months nationwide. No, that's not right. He's suffering great pain over the fact that racism is still so prevalent and so ugly and so ingrained in our society that sometimes it seems like nothing changed in all these years. We were considered two pretty amazing men as candidates for the ordained ministry. One of them had said at some point during an interview with the committee some years ago that he didn't get racism. Now, what he meant by that was that he couldn't fathom how any faithful Christian could hear the message of Christ to love one another and then turn around to act hateful and be racist. But Perry heard it as, racism isn't real. I don't see it. It made him very, very angry. He said, racism is alive and well, and if you don't see it, you're blind.
You need to see it. The church needs to see it. The church is passive. What is the church going to do about it? Perry was so very angry. You should have been there to hear him. The candidate was shocked and devastated. He didn't mean it at all the way Perry heard it.
He meant that Jesus' message of love should convert people from hatred. That's what he meant. That if they truly loved one another, they couldn't possibly hate somebody because of the color of his skin or for any other reason for that matter. Now, it took Perry a while to calm down. We all understood where he was coming from. Well, that's not entirely right either, because those of us whose experience is from the privileged side of society, because we're white, can't ever really understand. But we can feel his pain because it filled the room. We would have done anything we could to end it. Nothing is impossible
with God. But Mary wouldn't have become the mother of Jesus if she hadn't agreed to be a
vessel for the impossible. Taking action against racism is important. Perry's t-shirt, although it looked like a passive thing, isn't, because people saw it and reacted to it, and he wears it with love. Taking action with anger or hatred doesn't work. The violence in Ferguson and elsewhere proves that, as if we didn't already know. But neither does putting on my love glasses and pretending everything is wonderful. Just because I choose not to see the haters doesn't mean that they're not there. It's like saying, oh, I don't see color.
Because to say that
and believe that is to deny the reality of the differences between us, which should be celebrated, not ignored. Jesus loves me, yes. We sing that song, little ones sing that song. Jesus loves me, and Jesus loves you, and the oppressor, and the trafficker, and the racist. But Jesus does not ignore the oppression, the hater, the user.
Jesus turns over tables. He uses a whip on men who are shortchanging and overcharging and using religion as a
tool to make an immense profit. Jesus loves and forgives, but that's not a license to do as we please. Yes, he showed love and compassion to the woman taken in adultery, saving her life. But he didn't say, now everything's okay, sweetie, so just go do whatever. No, he said lovingly, go and sin no more. He said, love one another. Not enable one another. Not ignore one another. Not keep things exactly the way they are in the name of love. But go out and effect change. Preach the kingdom. The place where all are equal in stature and status. Where none hunger for touch. Where no one takes advantage of another for fun and profit. I have one more story
from this week, from something that happened this week.
I have a friend in Jerusalem,
an Orthodox Jew, who I speak with on one of the internet messaging sites regularly. Linda was watching me talk to him while we were having a break in between candidates. I was not doing it while people were actually in front of us.
But I had wished him a happy Hanukkah.
And each evening during Hanukkah, a candle is lit in much the same way that we light a new candle each Sunday during Advent. And my friend told me this story about those candles. He said, long ago the rabbis argued, should we light 8 candles the first night and 1 less each succeeding night? After all, the holiday is fullest at first and dwindling each night. Or should we do the reverse? Another said. And so it was decided to light just 1 candle on the first night and add another one each night. And with that decision, lighting the Hanukkah candles is to recognize that the light is building and growing. It is the fourth Sunday of Advent. We lit the fourth candle. The light is building and growing. It is the week that we celebrate love, God's love, the love that Jesus the Christ taught us about, the love that can and will change the world if we have the courage that Mary had to accept the call on our lives, to bring God's light into the world. All four candles are lit. One new candle every week, building up to Christmas, and the lighting of the Christ candle, celebrating the birth of the Christ, the light of the world. When we go from this place, let us take with us that recognition that the light is growing and building. Let us take off the love glasses that hide reality from our sight, and let the love in our hearts that is the light of Christ shine directly on the haters, exposing them to God's love. Let us sing of God's love and glory along with those angels we have heard, so that all the world may know of God's love and care for all of God's children. Let us sing together of God's love.